As we welcome our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms in a day. Tim Stenovec, where we see red pretty much across the screen here, a pause in the equity market rally.
Bitcoin not even above $100,000 right now.
Oh, it's over now.
Can you believe that?
I just put, oh gosh.
What happened?
Oh, gosh darn it.
Never mind.
You just talked about this?
No. He was joking that he put money into it.
Oh.
And then I realized that was a bad joke, but thanks for dragging me there.
that would be pretty much like you though, Romaine, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you're allowed to. Look though, I think we'll all remember where we were at that moment. You got that notification, Romaine?
Yes, I did get that notification.
The fundamentals. That's the question everybody still has.
The fundamentals of Bitcoin?
Yeah. That's the question everybody.
Yeah, Scarlet and I are looking.
Bitcoin? What?
Yeah, as someone who hosts a premier show on crypto, Stenovec, what are the fundamentals?
There are no fundamentals.
Okay,
there's still many people out there who argue that, they're greater fool theory. The idea that this thing only goes higher if there's somebody else out there to buy it for more money. There's no cash flows with Bitcoin. Those are what the skeptics are saying. But you know what? Those skeptics have been saying this for years. Yeah. And the people who are bullish on crypto and Bitcoin have been laughing all the way to
And they've been saying that about gold for years. And then the outlook is for gold to hit 3,000 from Bank of America. So there you go.
There you go.
But, gold is a traditional measure of value, and it's served a purpose throughout history. Bitcoin hasn't exactly done that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's come a long way here, so we'll see how much further it can go. I mean, even Hilly Welch getting in on the action there. All right, down days, red arrows across the board for Dow Jones Industrial Average. Going to finish the day lower by roughly 200 points, or about 0.5%. The S&P 500 down 11 points, or 0.2%. The NASDAQ also down about 0.2%, but the real decliners today were in that small, mid-cap, and that industrial space. Dow Transport's down 1.1%. S&P mid-cap's down 0.8%, and the Russell 2000, Tim, down 1.3%.
The S&P 500 today, we saw 189 stocks did move higher in there. The decliners, 313 stocks did move to the downside.
And with stocks kind of losing ground into the close, you see more decliners than advancers, at least among the sector groups, right? Materials losing 1.4%, industrials down 1.2%, backing up what Romaine was just saying about the Dow Transport's losing ground, and healthcare also down more than 1%. Your best performers, consumer names, discretionary and staples, are higher. Energy also gaining about 1/3%.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stocks that did finish in the green today. We got to talk about American Air. Look at that. American Airlines up 16.8%, having its best day intraday in years. The company did boost its adjusted earnings per share guidance for the fourth quarter. There was no investor day. There were no earnings. The company just coming out and saying that. Also announcing an agreement to extend its co-branded credit card agreement with Citigroup. You also saw shares of Brown-Forman end up moving higher in the day. They're the owners of Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, and other brands. The company did forecast that return to growth this fiscal year thanks to gains in international markets and normalizing inventory levels up by 10%.
But what was the commentary they had? Right? I mean, they're concerned about tariffs.
Yeah.
Because they think they're concerned about retaliatory tariffs. Is that the idea? And that might hurt their exports of whiskey to others?
I guess, yeah. but they're actually excited for the second half of next year. They expect the performance to accelerate through the second half of next year. But remember what happened in the first Trump administration? I remember going into a liquor store and there was a sign up that said that because of retaliatory tariffs, wine prices were higher.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. Do I have time for Five Below, or do we want to do earnings, guys?
We actually have Petco that just came out, so let's do earnings, yeah? Petco, who owns a pet here?
Me.
There you go.
I have a cat.
A cat owner there, dog owner here. Mm-hmm. All right, third quarter comparable sales rose 1.8%, better than the expected 0.7% increase. Net sales overall, $1.5 billion, matching the average analyst estimate as well. So the net sales meeting analyst estimates, a comp sales of a little bit better than what was anticipated. Still a net loss for the quarter, $16.7 million, narrower than what analysts had been anticipating. They were looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $19.7 million.
Yeah, I want to get into some of the top decliners here. I would point out, though, that Petco, I love the ticker symbol WOLF here, but it is among companies in the Russell 3000 reporting earnings today that have the highest short interest as a percentage of float right now. So actually, it's 30% of their shares shorted by that measure. But if you want to go and look at some of the biggest decliners here today, I want to point out Synopsys here, S&P as the ticker symbol on this, down 12%, worst day since March of 2020. So this is the maker of electronic design, automation software. It's a macro headwinds were weighing on its outlook. especially if you're looking at its first quarter forecast that is weaker than expected. Another one wanting to point out here is you're looking at shares of Uber, also down 9.6%, its worst day since October of 2022. Also, Lyft shares falling on the back of this. So if you're looking at here, those extended declines after Google's Waymo said it's expanding its ride-hailing service to Miami. So Waymo will begin offering rides in 2026. And then lastly, looking at American Eagle, AEO is the ticker symbol, down 14%. Its worst day since November of 2023. So we're staying a little over a year here. But those shares falling after the apparel retailer did lower its full-year comparable sales forecast, guys.
All right, want to kiss on what's happening in the bond market as well. Nothing is really the point. You're seeing a little bit of lift here for the 2-year yield, up by about 1 basis point, pretty much flat on the long end. But you're not going to see a lot of position taking into tomorrow, into Jobs Friday.
And I think, too, I mean, we talk about Jobs Friday, obviously 8:30 a.m. out of Washington tomorrow, and it gets to this idea of what actually moves the needle between now and the end of the year. We kind of know what the expectations are for that Fed decision on December 18th. Maybe the report tomorrow, the jobs report, can change that. But it seems like a lot of investors are kind of content with the gains they've had. A lot of them have already left. You're seeing that reflected in the volumes.
220,000 is the number of jobs that economists surveyed by Bloomberg are expected to be added during the most recent month, the month of November. Of course, it would be a marked increase from just the 12,000 in the prior month. But remember, you had the natural disasters, the hurricanes, you had the impact of the strikes, you had the folks not necessarily responding to surveys, so the data wasn't as strong. We'll see what happens, but also what it means for the Fed in the coming weeks.
Also keeping an eye on payrolls tomorrow. So this is to be the last report that we'll see ahead of the Fed decision on December 18th. So I like to look at what the options market is implying here. So the S&P 500 implied to swing about 0.7% in either direction tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just a little bit under in line where it's been over the past few months, guys.
You look back at Enterprises out with their earnings. This, of course, is the maker of servers, now a standalone company. Fourth quarter net revenue, $8.46 billion. The Street looking for $8.26 billion. The fiscal fourth quarter adjusted EPS coming in at 58 cents a share, a modest beat over Street estimates of 56 cents a share. Here's your guidance for the fiscal first quarter. The company says that it sees revenue growth up in the mid-teens percent. The Street was basically looking for about 15%. So it looks like that forecast is pretty much in line with estimates. And for first quarter adjusted EPS, 47 to 52 cents is your range that the company is giving. The Street, on average, looking for 48 cents.
All right, taking a look at Lululemon here. The company is upgrading its net revenue and earnings forecast for the year. For the fourth quarter in particular, third quarter in particular, comes in at $2.87 a share on earnings. Net revenue, $2.4 billion. Both of those are a beat. For the full year, they're looking on the high end now of revenue to come in about $10.49 billion. That is an increase. Also, in terms of the full year earnings, same deal on the high end, coming in at $14.16. So upgrading their estimates and beating solidly there for the third quarter.
All right, let me just jump in with DocuSign, because that company is boosting its full-year revenue forecast as well. It's now looking for full-year revenue of $2.96 billion, whereas previously it saw about $2.94. So it's still giving a range, and it's still a tight range, but it is a slight upgrade on that. Fourth quarter revenue will also be higher than what was anticipated by analysts, $758 million to $762 million. Analysts were looking for, on average, $755 million. And third quarter top line and bottom line beating analyst estimates. Stock up about 5.5%.
Okay, let's look at shares of Ulta Beauty, which are up by 9% as we speak. The company sees fiscal year net sales $11.1 billion to $11.2 billion. They saw $11.0 billion to $11.2 billion, so narrowing that guidance a little bit. The company also saying it still sees fiscal year net new stores 60 to 65. The estimate was for 60.5. I don't know you have half a store, but it's the average, I guess. Sees fiscal year comp sales -1% to 0%, saw -2% to 0%. The estimate was for about 80 basis points to the downside. Ulta does see fiscal year net sales coming in at $11.1 billion to $11.2 billion. Once again, shares in the after hours right now higher by 8.8%.
I want to point out here, GitLab is naming Bill Staples as its new CEO right now, just kind of getting a check here on what it is doing. In after-hours trading, if you're seeing this stock actually rising about 7%, actually up 8% now in after-hours trading on the back of that news. And Tim, of course, was just talking about when you're thinking about actually what's going on with the buybacks and Lululemon boosting that. I mean, this year is actually on pace to be one of the best years on record for buybacks.
Well, we're going to have to ask Poonam Goyal about that a little bit later on our program from Bloomberg Intelligence. She's going to be joining us a little later in the 4 o'clock hour. But for now, that is going to do it for our cross-platform coverage here on Bloomberg TV, Bloomberg Radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. We'll see you guys same time, same place tomorrow.